Oh, that's so bad. I'm sorry, guys. We lost the whole chat. My router went out on me. We DC'd. So unfortunately, this is a part two, but we'll try to get through this quickly. I don't think there'll be a ton to necessarily get through, but we will keep going on the conversation here with Seifer. Just to wrap things up here. I don't remember where we left off, but I will just say that this is an exceptional unit. I think this is a unit similar to Bradley, will be an equalizer for the game. I don't think he's necessarily going to be as oppressive because there's not any of the CT manipulation that Bradley was really the king of in terms of like lapping a lot of people. But when you talk about like the barrier break, the re-raise removal, the AoE res shred, the healing power down, the debuff reduction, there's a lot of things here that just act, the dispel on limit break, that just act as an equalizer to kind of reset where teams have started to kind of get out of whack and get some real synergy. That as a dark unit, obviously it's not part of that element wheel. It's really just light that kind of counters them. And so I think from that perspective, I think he's an excellent value add to the game. I'm honestly just really sad it's Seifer. I think it's really a poor unit that they use such a great character on. I don't think he's worthy of it lore wise, but yeah, I'll pause there.
I know I've seen people saying that this should have been Squall's kit, you know.
Yep,
Although, I mean, we did get some upgrades coming in for Squall as well, so
we did.
maybe that's a good segue into him.
I think it's a great segue. And so for Squall, what we know so far is that his MA2 is getting 10 slash pen, or 10% slash pen, 30 AoE res penetration. He's now getting a, we'll call it like a decrease of his honeycomb barrier where it was 4 to 7. Now it's 2 to 5, which actually is nicer because he's going to be in that 2 to 5 square range a lot more frequently. So the potency of that in close combat will be a lot better. His limit break is also getting an upgrade where it's becoming a physical barrier break. It's a sure hit, and it's a unit resin peril of 60%. So he's getting, I think it's a crush given the percent that they used. I can't imagine they would actually give a 60% flattened peril. So it's got to be a unit crush, I would think. I,
Yeah,
I like this. I don't, the limit break I'm a little confused on because I don't think unit res is really something that is Cloud's strong point. But other than this, I love the AoE res penetration. I think that's the one that stands out to me the most.
I think it's good. I mean, his LB, he'll use it against people that have a barrier or maybe on a tank or thing or something like that. So, if he throws that out onto the tank, yeah, that'll be better. I agree that maybe it's not the most synergistic with his own kit, but within the knight group in general, maybe that saves, Mont from having to throw that one out potentially, and he can use some other ability. But yeah, I think it seems like it's going to be an overall net positive for him. And to be honest, Squall was in a decent place, at least against June. He does have his deficiencies against other people in the meta, but if his honeycomb barrier here is now going to be effective, in that melee range, I think that's is a pretty big value add for him.
I would agree. And just kind of like a looking ahead, I've tested Squall a fair amount, and even in the Mono Lightning teams when June was first released, even Mono Lightning very much struggled against her. The power creep was just pretty enormous. And honestly, Lightning units aren't, surprisingly, up to snuff as some of the new power creep demands. I do think Squall with Lucille, and if you just went straight mono element and maybe went like good old fashioned lightning from 13, I've seen Lightning with 13 actually do like splashes of really great things because she's a missile scaling unit on most of her large AoE. She's got the follow up attack that I think if you went good old fashioned mono lightning into a lot of these June teams, even if they were the great sword, maybe different beast, but some of these like summer glassy June teams or the Oldoa June teams, I actually think like Squall and Lucille and another lightning unit, again in particular lightning from 13. I think there's a lot of good things there.
I agree. I think that there's a need for good lightning in the meta, and I think that, like you said, him along with Lucille and some of the other pieces, could potentially be very very strong because water we know has been very very good all about Joom right now.
Yep, totally. And we'll move to Rinoa here. I was actually intrigued by this because this was like a percent reduction in skill activation time, which we've never seen before. I can't imagine that being right. I don't know if it's maybe just a mistranslation in the meantime.
I'm guessing that he means it went from 200 to 400. I'm guessing that's what that means.
I would hope so. That's actually a good one because that is kind of a deficiency of hers. She does have some difficult breakpoints overall. The healing power up, nice. She's got a couple really powerful healing mods already. The healing power 10 is certainly nice. The debuff reduction or the debuff weakening of 25, I like that too because she's got some good survivability in her kit. I like that as a general application though. Her limit break desperately needed this. That limit break, one of the problems with it is that it's one square longer than anything in her kit offensively. So this is a limit break that quite frequently I would turn off because it just wasn't worth the risk of getting baited. Now, it maybe still isn't, considering you really do want her to be a support first, but it's certainly a lot better now that it's not the end of the world should she use her limit break. That it's the AoE crush of 60%. It's getting an upgrade to damage. It's Dispel of Haste and will nullify haste for 3 turns with a chance to poison. In addition to, I think it was a Spirit Pen that she had formerly, and I don't know if there was anything else on there. Second.
I think that was it.
Yeah, like this limit break was not good enough to keep on and be worth using ahead of anything else. All of a sudden, that's a different conversation. It's a lot better. I would be intrigued to see if they did anything to change this back to an Earth scaling modifier rather than typeless. The typeless ones I think have kind of not wowed me as much as of late, but yeah,
I think that's more like a lore thing, because isn't it like an Ultima kind of attack or something like that?
could be. Could be. It's not awful. I just know that
Yeah.
it's you need a lot of magic attack in these builds, and I don't think I'm getting it as of late.
I agree, though. It's at least like it's compelling that you could use it and actually get value out of it now.
Yeah.
And Rinoa, I think she was to this point the best out of the Final Fantasy VIII, collaboration. She's better than Irvine, in my opinion, at least in terms of tangible results that have happened so far. Better than Squall, although Squall it has been more relevant recently with the power of water, like we were talking about. But yeah, I think that's a very nice upgrade for Rinoa. I'm a little bit worried about her survivability because it really hasn't been the same since these crushes and area resist penetration now in the game as well. The debuff reduction will help, but glove doesn't really have anything to amplify that, and cloth users don't have anything to amplify that like the Maximilian. So that's one thing that I would like to see them implement is some better cloth armor or accessory maybe
Yeah.
to help out some of these cloth users that need that.
I think it's a good point. Then again, I actually don't mind the armor units having a step ahead because at some point you have to ask like what's the benefit of armor versus cloth, and I like the idea that armor units tend to have like more bulk to them than a cloth unit. Even like lore wise, armor should be better than cloth. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
paper beats, or yeah, you know what I'm saying. Uh, but we'll keep moving things along here because I know we're getting long in the night here. We'll look at the Irvine upgrades here. The MA2 for him, he's getting 30 human killer, which is actually very great for his follow-up attack. Of course, in addition to general damage, but the follow-up ability, that's a nice value add here. And he's getting an additional 25% physical damage reduction for 2 hits. Now, this does stack with his barrier that he does start the battle with. I actually think this is a very good MA2 for him. I'll be honest, out of all the tests I ever did with missile units like him and Melody and Raph, Irvine always surprisingly took more hits than I thought. It was still never enough, but it was always a little bit surprising to say, wow, like he's actually still alive. I think that 25% physical damage reduction does help in the modern era. It's not game changing because he is a unit as a gun unit that is a little more closer range, so he does need that bulk to be able to contend up closer. I don't think it's going to fix him on its own, but I think this is exactly the direction they needed to go in with him. I don't really know what else you could possibly do for the MA2 here. I'll pause there from the MA2 perspective.
So I like this on its face value for all the reasons you said. To fix him, I think that he needed an innate +1 range,
It's a good one.
because I just don't think that the bulky gunner is ever going to work. Even though that this, maybe he can now take 2 hits with his barrier and with this, that's fine, whatever. It's not enough,
Right,
right?
right.
Because his damage isn't, and it goes into the whole missile argument all over again. And I think his range issue is going to consistently be a problem because, you're going to want to take that barrier, and that's going to limit him to just +1 range.
Yep, you're right.
And I think that's always been his biggest problem.
Yep, that's a good call out there. I know, I think on the sub job, does he have a range +1? He does have this buff. I've used this occasionally, but like you don't want to waste a buff on that. That doesn't feel good. Was that it? Was there really? Oh no, that's what it was. On the main job, he has one as well. So like it's
Yeah.
there, but like missile units shouldn't be that hard to get working. I agree with you. That actually would have been a really good upgrade there.
I feel like his survivability isn't good enough for the fact that he's going to be in the thick of it. He doesn't have like the reduction to movement like the other, gunners have. So like he's literally designed to be up there in that AoE range, and the physical reduction is nice. The barrier is nice, but he doesn't have any wide res. He doesn't have access to armor that can get it. So yeah, I think his damage is fine though. I think, from a damage perspective with what he does and with his follow up, that's I think competitive, for a missile unit.
I agree.
But
Uh,
yeah, we'll see once he gets it though. I'll definitely give him another whirl.
Yeah, and we'll keep going. I just want to answer Chris so quickly. I had a question. Can Renault get instant cast like Lucille? I think she can technically. So she's getting 400 here on the mastery ability. So 400, that'll be another 200 here. So you're up to 600. A Trust Stone passive would get her to 800. Then technically an Esper would get her to 1,000. There is still buffs in her kit that can get her to instacast, but these typically are not recommended to have on because she ends up falling too far behind in the battle, spacing wise. But with the Esper, you can definitely hit the 1,000 attack skill down. Yeah, I just want to pause and highlight
That
that.
would just be for her offensive attacks though.
Correct. Yes.
She'll be at 600 for her supportive skills. What was her healing cast time? Is it 360 or 200 or
320.
320? So it's still going to be a 2 tick, which is too bad.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. But we'll keep going on Irvine here. The other upgrades, the limit break. This is AP consumption down, accuracy up for 3 turns. Interesting angle there. And then there's some confusion in the translation if this is missile res down or AoE res down. We really don't know based off the translation at the moment. But it looks like he's also getting a buff to debuff weakening as well, which I do think kind of feeds into like that survivability up close and personal. It's not amazing. It's something. I don't know if it's exactly what I would have liked to have gone for from the limit break, but the limit break always we thought was a difficult play for him because of how close range it was, and it is a form of defense penetration for him, and that's really it. The triple hit's nice. Obviously, I would love to see a cost reduction going from 49 to something lower. Maybe it does jack up the damage a bit. I think it's a decent enough limit break upgrade, but I don't think this is going to save him by any means. It's just like a better upgrade, better limit break.
Yeah, they attempt to address a couple of his deficiencies here, like with the AP management, and accuracy actually is
Yeah.
one of his deficiencies.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's okay. I don't think it's great though.
No, same here. And then they apparently were upgrading his weapon, but I don't think this translation that we know is all that accurate because right now his weapon, they typically, when they make these upgrades, don't upgrade 2 attributes. They only upgrade 1. And I know the formal halt has crit rate of 15 on it. And from right now, it looks like defense pen, human killer, and crit rate. I don't think they're adding these two. I think that would be very irregular from them to add 2 effects to a gun. Then again, maybe not. Maybe this gun, because they have like the universal application of the other gun units here, maybe it is. Which in that case, I actually think that's a substantial upgrade. This gun always stuck out to me as incredibly bad, quite frankly. That would actually be a worthy upgrade for me.
I hope that it's on his personal weapon, but I think I remember seeing that somebody was saying that it's maybe an all new weapon.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, again, we're kind of a little bit blind to some things because World of Calc isn't updating until the end of the week.
interesting. I would actually hate that, if only because one of the best items for him is the Ragnarok accessory, which has human killer on it, which would not stack. So you'd be a little redundant there in using the. Oh, I'm not on the right screen. I'm sorry, guys. I just want to pull it up just to refresh our memories here. Ragnarok. That for Irvine, it was human killer and attack 30%. So Maybe because the
If
translation that says with physical attack, maybe it does stack.
Yeah, if it's general human killer rather than typed, it would stack. So it looks like Nomad Saint is saying that it's a new gun from an MA2 quest.
Cool.
So I guess similar to like Barrett, I think we got one from his quest too when he was released. So I do hope that they've made that consideration in stacking it with the Ragnarok.
Way better. Wait, that's his niche. It's the follow up damage. And one thing we've noticed is that the follow up damage, as of late, really isn't all that great unless it's accompanied by a unit in peril, which I don't think he has. I know Melnia had, and I think he was relying on that Melnia synergy to really amplify the damage. I don't think he had. Oh no, he had it. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. He has 20 unit peril. So okay, I'll stand corrected. I'm very excited to give it another shot, but I have low hopes.
Personally, I'm going to try to test him out with Mont because they both work on the Melnia card. So,
Correct.
and Mont can bring him the crush, the unit res crush. I think that maybe could be a fun team,
Yep.
at least for like the double follow ups.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we'll see.
Very much looking forward to that. But uh, we do have one last Q&A here that we'll talk through. And other than that, we'll try to wrap things up relatively quickly here. Let's see if I can get this up on screen. I haven't done this in a while. There we go. So this Q&A came from, I think it was Woodstock Wins, who is a big time manual player here in War of the Visions, and a really good question. We've actually talked about this before. Next gen units are getting, he mentions single target penetration. I don't think we've seen single target penetration yet, but AoE penetration we absolutely have, and he is correct. All these new units are getting AoE penetration rather frequently. Are those resistances, single target AoE resistance, still good? Are they dying or are they dead? Um, have you thought about this at all? I know we've talked about it a little bit. Do you want to go first? Or
I've thought about it ever since the Helena came into the game,
yeah,
6 months ago,
yep,
7 months ago. And I think that that was sort of the first nail in the coffin for like, and I felt like a broken record for 4 years saying, these are the building blocks of PvP. These are what you use for your teams. On some level, I still believe that to be true, and that's still kind of the philosophy that I go by. But more and more, I'm making the conscious decision to get full value from something else, like an offensive ability or maybe some other kind of defensive effect through, like, for example, like reaction block. Maybe I'll prioritize something like reaction block because if I'm able to avoid a reaction, that can, in a way, improve my survivability. And maybe that's more valuable than getting 60% of or 40% effectiveness out of that 20 area resist, for example. So it's kind of a different way to think about it. I think you have to basically go in with the foresight that you're getting only 40% of that value of whatever area resist that you put on your unit. And that's kind of how I've been approaching it lately. But absolutely, there have been deprecated significantly.
I completely agree. If I had to go based off the offer here of which one of these three can I pick, I still think they're good. Now they're not as good, but I don't like the word dying because to me dying implies that it's on the way to being dead, and I don't think these are anywhere on the way to being dead. I think they've just been normalized where for so long this game, like the sun rises and the sun sets, you knew that AoE res was golden. There's nothing they could do about it, and that was the golden standard for years. This is just a correction to the power creep that came into the unit res and the AoE res. And so just because it's corrected doesn't necessarily mean that it's dead. I don't think it's there yet. Until we start getting to the 100% levels, then I would say it's dead. But you think of something like slash res pen and defense pen. When you first got defense pen of 40 in the game, did you think that defense was dying or dead? Well, no. Like it's just a correction to the defense levels that was getting up there. Now all of a sudden, when defense pen gets to 100, you can make the argument that defense maybe is dying out, but it's still never dead. Defense is still super valuable, as we just talked about a lot earlier. It's just less so. And so while you may not emphasize it, I still think it's absolutely worth putting into your builds. I still think it's a good thing to prioritize for vision cards because vision cards are non-dispellable in any way. Those are just permanent stats in your units. So I would agree. These AoE buffs, like AoE res on a buff, that can get dispelled, that can get crushed, that can get penetrated. Sure, maybe that part of the buff means less, but I think from like an innate vision card perspective, a building block perspective, 80% of the time I still think it's the right call. But you're right, there are certain things. Reaction block sticks out in particular as a major potential replacement, but there's not many other things I would replace it with. I still think they're very much it's still damage mitigation, even though it's not the full 20%. It's still 12%. It's still 10%. That's still something. So until it's 100% AOE pen, I'm not ready to say it's dying.
There is also that consideration of how much debuff weakening do you have on the team, and that amplifying or reducing that 60% crush down to 30% or 25%. So you're able to, with the weakening debuff weakening, protect some of that innate area resistance that you have. That of course is not working against these new penetrations that they've implemented, but they seem to be comfortable around that 60% mark. I'm sure we'll see it eventually creep up to 80%, and that's probably, or like with the Seifer conversation, he's got the debuff weakening in peril. It's definitely getting to that point where it's just another tool in the toolbox rather than the main tool of your toolbox.
Right. Which I don't hate, to be honest. It was nice while it lasted, but I think we're both kind of the opinion like you don't want the game to be the exact same forever. It gets formulaic, it gets kind of boring, it gets repetitive. That now all of a sudden it's AOE res, but there's also AOE wide res. So now you have a totally different component to consider as well in terms of a like non-penetratable type of resistance. And so I think they've introduced a lot of ways to mitigate damage. Now we have honeycomb barriers all over the place. Now we have these physical damage reductions. We have the auras that it's not so much boom or bust on the AoE res stat itself. There's like 8 other things that help the percentages up and down that are roughly equivalent. So I think it's a rather smart thing that Gumi has done, even if it might be slightly more complex from a team building perspective. But I do think it's overall a healthier direction for them to go in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But cool. That's all we had today. I think we just passed that hour mark with the 40-minute part one that got cut off. I apologize, guys. The router died on me there, and it's never happened before. So apparently, just a little hiccup. But I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about. It's nice that we're getting a Monday news release again. I know we had kind of like that dead time till the reset that we're missing out on some of the daily rewards. I know there's actually been a lot of chatter of people not feeling very good about that because it's been like 2 cycles in a row that's happened where we've gone over the daily login rewards. I'll be honest, I can see why people might be slightly salty about that. I know it's kind of boring for us sometimes too when we're just kind of sitting here waiting for something to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate part of sort of the road to worldwide, because that is how JP has operated since the game started. They've had this irregular game cycle updates that kind of starts on the first day of the month, and there is like some days within the month that end up not being covered by the login bonuses. That is something that the worldwide or the global team implemented with sort of the daily, every day having a login bonus. So yeah, I don't personally like it just because I've been conditioned to that for several years now, but that is where things are at now.
Yeah. No, and I don't think it's a huge deal at the end of the day, but I think optics doesn't look very good. It does make us really feel like second fiddle. Like you guys can't go that little bit of extra mile to give us a daily login bonus. It's kind of like the bare minimum that every gotcha in the world does all the time is these like daily login bonuses. Like, are we really that far behind from your time and efforts that we couldn't just get a splash for those couple extra days?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think that the devs would have been doing themselves a favor if they took a nod from the global team in this case and carried it over into the Japanese side as well. And maybe that would have been, increased some of their perspectives and loyalty over there as well. I think there's several things that the global team did that would have maybe made a better overall player experience for everyone that plays War of the Visions.
Yep. I agree, but we will pause there. I'm very excited for the Trials of Reckoning, get this new item. I'm excited for the RAF MA2, see if that does anything at all. I'm going to guess no, but you like to have new toys to play with. And other than that,
Yeah.
just waiting for Final Fantasy VIII because I actually am very excited that they're kind of giving these units second life. I am intrigued to theory craft with them again, see if they do anything. But that's all I'm
You
thinking about
did
for now.
before we roll out here, you
Hmm.
did tease that note about Edea in Final
Oh,
Fantasy VIII,
yes.
and I do think that was notable. That they have made a new model for Edea. Maybe that is part of them now putting some additional resources into the game. We actually haven't seen that before, where a new model has been introduced on a rerun. Seifer, obviously, he was already there from the initial Trials of Reckoning with eight when they ran that last year. When Kefka came, when Golbez came, when these other units came in the reruns, there wasn't any new units that was developed. And that is kind of a notable thing here for what's shown up in JP this week.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of precedent it would set, if any, but I don't mind it. Again, I don't mind bringing in the Final Fantasy characters. Like, just do it.
Idea is great, so I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, it's not so long before she comes into the game. You know, whenever they decide to bring back eight again. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that in the future.
Absolutely, but we will pause here. Good luck to those pulling for the Vision card in a couple days, and I hope Guild Wars is going well. I know this can be a tough time for many with all the new units and whatnot coming in, but we got Gilgamesh coming in a week or so from now, a new Esper, a new Vision card. Things are going to, I think, get easier, quite frankly, now that the pool of units is going to expand a little bit. Maybe not at the top end of the game, but I do think the average player is going to likely feel the game normalize a little bit. But I'm hopeful.
At least the stuff that's kind of coming in over the next month or so before eight comes back is permanent pool stuff
Correct.
that I do know that a lot of people who don't spend on the game, they opt to skip that stuff and pull it later, which to be honest is not a bad strategy.
I totally agree. But that's it for now. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks again for watching and for understanding.